The lobby of Sterling Heights Tower, Victoria Island, Lagos was so quiet you could hear shoes tapping like tiny drums. Everyone was lined up like a parade, men in fitted suits, women in sharp blazers, security guards with straight backs. Even the front desk staff looked like they were holding their breath. On the wall behind them, the company logo shined in silver letters, Bexford Group. And in the middle of that long line stood Kiki. Kiki wasn't wearing a suit. She wore a simple navy blue skirt that had been washed too many times, and a white shirt that always needed ironing no matter how hard she tried. Her ID card hung on her neck, slightly scratched. Her job title said messenger/runner. In other words, she was the person who carried files, moved documents, delivered parcels, and got sent around the building like a football. Right now, Kiki's hands were sweating, not because the air conditioner was not working. The air conditioner was working too. Well, the cold entered your bones like ice water. Kiki was sweating because of what she had overheard earlier that morning. Two managers near the elevator had been whispering. The board finally picked a new CEO. I heard she's strict, like strict. They said she's coming today. No notice. Just like that. Kiki tried not to listen. It wasn't her business. But her stomach had twisted anyway, because when big people enter, small people suffer first. That's how office life worked. And then, a sound outside, a slow, heavy purr. Heads turned toward the glass entrance. A white car rolled into the driveway like a quiet king. Not just any car, a white Rolls-Royce. It gleamed under the Lagos sun like it had its own light. The security men rushed out fast. One opened the car door with both hands, like he was opening a treasure box. And the woman who stepped out made the entire line freeze. She wasn't tall, but the way she stood made her look taller than everybody. She wore a simple cream outfit. Nothing loud, no big jewelry, yet she looked like money without trying. Then she turned her face slightly, and the lobby camera caught her clearly on the big screen. And Kiki's heart dropped so hard it almost hit the floor. Because Kiki knew that face with soft wrinkles around the eyes, that quiet, tired mouth, that same face that had been bent over a mop in the hallway a few days ago. The woman walked forward calmly, 1 step, 2 steps. People began clapping, but it sounded weak, confused, like their hands didn't believe what they were doing. Kiki's mouth went dry. No, she whispered, without meaning to. The woman reached the line. She moved past managers, past directors, past the branch head, past the HR lead. She kept walking, straight toward Kiki. Kiki tried to hide behind the taller people, but there was nowhere to hide. She was stuck in her spot, like her shoes were glued to the marble. The woman stopped in front of her. She looked directly at Kiki, and then, slowly, she stretched out her hand for a handshake. People's eyes almost popped out. A murmur rose in the lobby like a wave. Is that the messenger? Why is the CEO greeting her? Do they know each other? Kiki could not move. Her fingers were shaking. The CEO leaned slightly closer, her voice low, almost gentle. And she said, clear enough for only Kiki to hear, "Kiki, you fed me when you didn't have enough." Kiki's throat closed. The CEO's hand stayed there, waiting. The whole company watched. And Kiki suddenly realized something terrifying. This moment, this handshake, could change her life, or destroy it. Because in places like this, attention was dangerous. Very dangerous. Kiki swallowed hard and lifted her hand. And that was when the CEO turned her head toward the board members behind her and said something that made the entire lobby go silent like a switch had been turned off. I want her. Kiki blinked. Want her? For what? The CEO smiled, but it wasn't a soft smile. It was the smile of someone who had already made a decision. Then she added, starting today. Kiki's knees almost gave way, and before Kiki could even ask a question, a security officer stepped forward and called Kiki's full name loudly. Kiki Lola Adebayo. The way he said it sounded like a warning. Kiki turned sharply. Why was security calling her name like that? And why were the managers suddenly staring at her like she had stolen something? Kiki's chest tightened, because she remembered something from a few days ago. Something small, something she thought nobody saw. But maybe somebody did, and maybe She was in trouble. Kiki hated mornings, not because she was lazy. She loved work, she loved trying. But mornings were loud in Ajagunle, where she lived with her aunt in a cramped room behind a small provision shop. Generators growled, Danfo buses honked, people shouted prices. Kuli kuli, gala, pure water. The smell of frying oil always stayed in the air. Kiki would wake up before the sun fully came out, wash quickly with cold water, and dress like someone who had money, just for the world outside. Then she would take 2 buses to Victoria Island, one from Ajagunle to Costain, then another from Costain to VI. Sometimes she stood the whole way, holding her bag tight because pickpockets were not smiling people. That morning, her aunt had handed her something inside a nylon bag, a small plastic plate, covered. Take, her aunt said. Kiki's eyes widened. Auntie, what is this? Her aunt didn't look at her. Open it at work. Kiki carefully opened it when she got to the office, around 10 a.m., in the small messenger corner near the photocopy room. Inside was jollof rice and 1 piece of fish. Not plenty, but enough to keep her alive till evening. Kiki stared at it like it was gold. She hadn't eaten breakfast. There had been nothing to eat at home, so this was it. Her only meal. She looked around and smiled a little. God bless you, Auntie, she whispered, even though her aunt wasn't there. Kiki tied the nylon bag again and kept it under her desk. She planned to eat it during her short break around 1 p.m. But at 12:20 p.m., her supervisor shouted from the corridor, Kiki, take this file to the 12th floor, legal department, now. Kiki jumped up quickly. Yes, ma. She picked the brown file, pressed it to her chest, and rushed to the elevator. In Bexford Group, you didn't keep important people waiting. You didn't even breathe too loudly around them. The elevator doors opened on the 12th floor. Cool air hit her face. This floor always smelled like expensive perfume and printer ink. The carpet was thick and soft, like walking on sponge. Kiki delivered the file, collected a signature, and turned back toward the elevator. That was when she saw her. The old cleaner. She was mopping near the corner, her body bent like she was carrying invisible weight. Her uniform was the light brown cleaning uniform the building cleaners wore, faded and loose. Her headscarf was tied neatly, but her hands trembled slightly as she pushed the mop. Kiki had seen her before, but not closely. Today, something looked wrong. The cleaner's lips were dry, her eyes were not focused. Her breathing sounded heavy. Kiki slowed down. She had learned something from life. When adults get too quiet, something is wrong. Kiki walked closer carefully. Ma. Good afternoon, she said softly. The cleaner did not answer. Kiki tried again. Ma, are you okay? The old woman paused. Her fingers tightened on the mop handle. Then she shook her head slightly, like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Her throat moved like she was swallowing sand. Kiki looked at her face more closely. Patricia's skin had that dull look people get when they have not eaten or slept. And then Kiki noticed something else. The cleaner's knee buckled for half a second. Just a small wobble. But it was enough. Kiki stepped forward fast and held her elbow. Ma, Kiki whispered sharply. Please, lean on me. The old woman's eyes widened, embarrassed. She tried to pull away, but she was weak, too weak. Kiki guided her to a small bench near the emergency staircase where staff sometimes sat during fire drills. The old woman sat slowly, breathing hard. Kiki's heart was beating. Ma, what's wrong? Are you sick? Should I call someone? The old woman tried to speak, but only air came out. She pressed a hand to her stomach without thinking. Kiki understood immediately. Hunger, real hunger. Not the type where you're just bored. The type where your body starts to shut down quietly. Kiki froze because she knew that feeling. She had felt it many times. The empty buzzing inside your belly. The dizziness, the shame, the anger, the fear that you might faint in public. Kiki looked around. The hallway was empty. Everyone was inside offices, in meetings, typing, pretending life was normal. Nobody saw this old woman shaking on a bench. Nobody cared. Kiki's throat tightened. Then she made a choice so fast she didn't even argue with herself. She dropped her bag, opened it, and pulled out her nylon bag of food. The smell of jollof rice escaped quickly. Kiki's mouth watered automatically. Her stomach squeezed like it was begging, but she pushed it away. She opened the plate, scooped the spoon in, and placed it in the old woman's hand. "Please," Kiki said, her voice soft but firm, "eat." The old woman stared at the food like it was not real. She finally managed, her voice rough. "I can't." Kiki shook her head. "You can," Kiki insisted. "Just small, you need strength." The old woman's eyes filled with tears, not the dramatic kind. The quiet kind that come when someone has been strong for too long. Kiki leaned closer. "My name is Kiki," she said gently, like she was talking to a child. "I won't stand here and watch you suffer." The old woman's lips trembled. Then she ate, slowly at first, then faster. As she ate, she kept glancing at Kiki, like she was trying to memorize her face. Kiki turned her head away once because her own eyes were burning. Not because she regretted it, because her body was still human. She was still hungry. And giving away your only meal doesn't make your stomach stop hurting. It just makes your heart louder than your hunger. Kiki stood up quickly. "Ma, eat it all. I have to go before my supervisor starts shouting again." She picked her bag and moved 2 steps away. Then the old woman called out, voice stronger now. "Wait." Kiki stopped. The old woman held the plate with one hand and lifted, her other hand slightly, like she needed something important. "What is your name again?" she asked carefully. "Kiki," Kiki answered. "And where do you work? Which department?" Kiki blinked, confused. "I'm a messenger, ground floor. I run files." The old woman nodded slowly, like she was storing the information in a locked box inside her head. "Kiki," she repeated, "messenger." Kiki forced a small smile. "Yes, Ma." Then she turned to leave, but as she walked toward the elevator, she felt something odd. A strange feeling like eyes were on her. She glanced back quickly. The old woman was still sitting on the bench, but she wasn't eating anymore. She was staring down at something in her own palm. Something small, something shiny. Kiki squinted. Was that a ring? No, it looked like a gold signet ring, the kind rich people wear. Kiki's steps slowed. Cleaners didn't wear rings like that, especially not in this building, where cleaners were treated like invisible people. Kiki's heart started to beat faster. Then a voice snapped behind her. "Kiki!" Kiki turned sharply. A security man was walking toward her fast. His face was hard. His radio crackled. And behind him, 2 staff members from HR appeared at the end of the hall, moving quickly like something serious had happened. The security man pointed straight at Kiki. "Madam, you, stop there." Kiki froze. The file in her hand slipped a little. She didn't understand. "What did I do?" Kiki asked, her voice suddenly small. The security man didn't answer her question. Instead, he looked past her, toward the bench, toward the old cleaner, and his eyes widened. He whispered something into his radio so fast Kiki couldn't catch it. Then he said, loud and urgent, "Call medical, now." Kiki spun around. The old cleaner, Patricia, was swaying. Her eyes rolled slightly, the plate tilted, and then she collapsed sideways on the bench, like her bones had turned to paper. "Kiki," the security man barked again. "What did you give her?" Kiki's breath caught in her chest. She couldn't speak. Because suddenly, it wasn't just about food anymore. It felt like something bigger, something dangerous. And as the hallway filled with running footsteps and panicked voices, Kiki realized one terrifying thing. If Patricia dies here, they will blame her first. And Kiki, the poor messenger girl with no connections, had no idea how to defend herself. Not in a place like Bexford Group. Not on a floor where power lived. Kiki took one shaky step backward. The first thing Kiki noticed was the smell. Hospitals had a smell she could never forget. Cold, clean, sharp, like fear had been washed with disinfectant. She sat on a plastic chair outside the Bexford Group medical bay, her knees pressed together, her fingers locked so tight they hurt. Her bag lay on the floor between her feet, forgotten. People rushed past, a nurse with quick steps, a security officer talking into his radio, someone from HR whispering urgently into a phone. But nobody was talking to Kiki. That silence was worse than shouting. Her mind kept replaying the same image again and again. Patricia's body tilting, the plate slipping, her eyes rolling back. "What did you give her?" The security man's voice echoed in her head like a drum. Kiki swallowed. "I gave her food," she whispered to herself. "Just food." But she knew how offices worked. When something went wrong, the smallest person carried the biggest blame. She stared at the floor tiles, counting them, trying to calm herself. 1, 2, 3. Her stomach twisted painfully, not just fear, hunger. She hadn't eaten anything all day. Her only meal was gone. And now, it felt like it had become evidence. The door to the medical bay opened. Everyone straightened at once. A nurse stepped out, her face unreadable. "She's stable," the nurse said. But she was severely weak, low blood sugar, dehydrated. Kiki's chest loosened just a little. She didn't faint completely. Thank God. The nurse looked around, her eyes landing on Kiki. "Who gave her food?" Every head turned. Kiki's heart slammed. Slowly, she raised her hand. "I did." The nurse nodded. "You did the right thing," she said calmly. If she hadn't eaten, she could have collapsed completely. Kiki almost cried from relief, but relief never lasted long in places like this, because the next voice that spoke was not kind. "Why were you interacting with staff outside your department?" The voice was sharp, corporate sharp. Kiki looked up. A woman in a grey suit stood there, her hair pulled back tightly. Her ID card read, Mrs. Funke Oladipo. Human Resources. Beside her stood the same security man who had shouted earlier. Kiki stood up quickly. I just saw that she was weak," Kiki said. "I didn't want her to faint." Mrs. Oladipo crossed her arms. "You are a messenger. Your duty is to deliver files, not interfere with cleaners." Kiki opened her mouth, then closed it again. She felt small, very small. "I'm sorry, Ma," she said softly. Mrs. Oladipo studied her like she was reading a report. "What exactly did you give her?" "My lunch," Kiki replied, "jollof rice and fish." There was a pause. Mrs. Oladipo's eyebrow lifted slightly. "That was all you had?" Kiki nodded. "Yes, Ma." For a second, something flickered across the HR manager's face. Not pity, not anger, something unreadable. Then she turned sharply to the nurse. "How long before she can work again?" The nurse hesitated. "She shouldn't return to cleaning today. She needs rest." Mrs. Oladipo nodded. "Fine, make sure she's taken home safely." Then she turned back to Kiki. "You," she said, pointing, "come with me." Kiki's stomach dropped. People around them started whispering. Is she in trouble? Why HR? Did she poison the cleaner? Kiki's ears burned. She followed Mrs. Oladipo down a quiet hallway, past offices with glass walls and serious faces inside. They stopped in front of a door. No name, no glass, just a brown door. Mrs. Oladipo opened it. "Sit." Kiki obeyed. The room was small, a desk, 2 chairs, no windows, the kind of room where people cried. Mrs. Oladipo sat opposite her and folded her hands. "Kiki Adebayo," she said, reading from a tablet. "You joined Bexford Group 8 months ago." "Yes, Ma." "You have no previous disciplinary record." "Yes, Ma." "You live in Ajagunle." Kiki blinked. "Yes, Ma." "You earn the minimum salary for your role." Kiki nodded slowly. Mrs. Oladipo leaned forward. "Why did you give your only food to the cleaner?" The question landed hard. Kiki wasn't prepared for it. She thought they would ask about policy, or rules, or permission. Not this. Kiki stared at her hands. They were shaking slightly. "Because," she began, then stopped. Her throat tightened. She took a breath. "Because I know that feeling," Kiki said quietly, "when your body is weak but you still have to work. When nobody notices you. When you're hungry but you're ashamed to ask." Mrs. Oladipo watched her closely. Kiki continued, her voice trembling now. "My parents died when I was younger. I live with my aunt. Some days, food is not guaranteed, so when I saw her like that, I didn't think. I just acted." Silence filled the room. Heavy silence. Then Mrs. Oladipo leaned back. "You understand," she said slowly. That in corporate spaces intentions do not always matter, only outcomes. Kiki nodded. Yes, ma. If something had gone wrong, Mrs. Oladipo continued, you would have been blamed. Yes, ma. And yet, Mrs. Oladipo said, tapping her fingers lightly on the desk, you still did it. Kiki looked up. Yes, ma. Mrs. Oladipo studied her for a long moment. Then she stood. You may go. Kiki blinked. That's all? For now. Kiki stood slowly, unsure. As she reached the door, Mrs. Oladipo spoke again. Kiki, yes, ma? Next time, be careful. Kiki nodded and left. Her legs felt weak as she walked back to the ground floor. Nothing bad happened, no warning letter, no suspension. But something about the day felt unfinished, like a page had been turned, but not read. That evening, Kiki returned home tired and hungry. Her aunt noticed immediately. You didn't eat at work? Her aunt asked. Kiki shook her head. No. Her aunt sighed and served her Gary and groundnut. As Kiki ate, she thought about Patricia. Was she okay? Would she come back to work? Would she even remember Kiki? The thought felt silly. Why would an old cleaner remember a messenger girl? Life didn't work that way. The next day, Patricia did not come to work, neither the next, nor the next. People forgot quickly. Another cleaner took her place. The bench on the 12th floor was empty again. Weeks passed, work returned to normal, but rumors began to move through the building like smoke. The CEO resigned suddenly. The board has been quiet. They said a new CEO is coming from abroad. Kiki listened but stayed in her lane. She ran files, she delivered parcels, she kept her head down, until one Monday morning when an email dropped into every staff inbox. Subject: official introduction of new group CEO. There was tension in the air that day. Security was doubled, the lobby was cleaned until it shone. Managers practiced smiles, and Kiki was told to stand in line with everyone else. That was how she ended up there, in the lobby, facing a white Rolls-Royce. Facing Patricia and hearing her name spoken in a voice that carried power now. Kiki, you fed me when you didn't have enough. The memory crashed into her like a wave, the bench, the food, the ring. And suddenly, it all made sense. But before Kiki could process it, before she could even breathe properly, Patricia turned to the crowd and said the words that changed everything. I want her, starting today. Gasps filled the lobby. Mrs. Oladipo's head snapped up. The board members exchanged shocked looks, and Kiki's supervisor whispered sharply, What did you do? Kiki's heart pounded, because whatever was happening, she was standing at the center of it, and she had no idea whether she was about to rise or fall. The clapping stopped, not slowly, not politely. It stopped like someone had cut the sound with scissors. Inside the lobby of Bexford Group, nobody knew what to do with their hands anymore. Some people dropped them to their sides, some folded them awkwardly, some just froze. Kiki stood there, her heart beating so loudly she was sure the people beside her could hear it. I want her, starting today. The words echoed again in her head. Her supervisor, Mrs. Banjo, leaned toward her and whispered sharply, What did you do? Kiki shook her head slowly. I swear I didn't do anything, she whispered back. But even as she said it, she knew the truth was more complicated. She had done something. She had given away food she needed. She had noticed someone everyone else ignored. And now, that small moment had followed her into this bright, cold lobby. Patricia, the woman who used to push a mop, turned fully toward the board members. Her posture changed, not dramatically, but enough. She stood straighter now. Her shoulders were no longer bent. Her eyes were sharp, steady, awake. This was not the woman who had almost fainted on a bench. This was someone else. Good morning, Patricia said calmly, her voice carrying across the lobby without effort. My name is Patricia Adeyemi. Some people nodded politely. Others frowned. She paused, then added, For the past 6 months, many of you have known me only as a cleaner in this building. A ripple of discomfort passed through the crowd. Kiki felt it like cold wind. Patricia continued, But that is not who I am. A board member cleared his throat. Another shifted his weight. Mrs. Oladipo from HR looked like she had just realized she was missing a crucial file. Patricia turned slightly and gestured toward the car behind her. "The board invited me back to Nigeria 2 weeks ago," she said, after a long absence. Silence. "I am the majority shareholder of Bexford Group," Patricia said, "and as of today, your new group CEO." The words landed heavy. Someone gasped loudly. A woman near the back whispered, "Jesus." Kiki's knees went weak. Majority shareholder, CEO, the old cleaner, the same woman who had sat on a bench, shaking. Patricia looked around, letting the shock settle. "Before I officially stepped into this role," she said, "I chose to observe this company quietly." A murmur rose. "To see how people are treated when no one thinks it matters," Patricia continued. "To see who notices those with no titles." Her eyes moved, slowly, deliberately, until they rested on Kiki again. Kiki's chest tightened. "When I was weak," Patricia said, "no manager stopped, no director asked questions, no executive noticed." The room felt smaller, but one person did. Kiki swallowed. Patricia took a step closer to her. "That young woman," she said, pointing gently, "gave me her only meal. Not because she was told to, not because she wanted recognition, but because she saw a human being. You could hear breathing, nothing else. That," Patricia said, "is the kind of person I want beside me." She turned back to the board. "Kiki Adebayo will be my personal assistant." The word assistant echoed like thunder. Someone laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. Mrs. Banjo's face drained of color. Mrs. Oladipo looked stunned. And Kiki couldn't breathe. "I'm sorry," Kiki said without thinking, her voice cracking slightly. "Ma, I think there's a mistake." Patricia smiled, not the polite smile of a CEO, the warm smile of the woman who had once eaten jollof rice on a bench. "There is no mistake," Patricia said gently. "You already passed the test." The lobby exploded into whispers. "This is not fair. How can a messenger—" "She has no experience." Patricia raised one hand. The noise died instantly. "Experience can be taught," she said calmly. "Character cannot." She turned to Kiki again. "Can you come with me?" Kiki hesitated. Every instinct screamed danger. This kind of sudden rise did not come without enemies, but she nodded. "Yes, Ma." As Kiki stepped out of line, she felt hundreds of eyes on her, some curious, some angry, some jealous, some confused, and a few hateful. Patricia began walking toward the elevator, reserved for executives. Kiki followed, her legs shaky. Inside the elevator, the doors closed softly. Only the two of them were inside. The silence felt heavy. Patricia pressed the button for the top floor. Then she looked at Kiki properly for the first time since the lobby. "You look like you might faint," Patricia said lightly. Kiki laughed nervously. "I almost did already." Patricia chuckled softly. "That day on the 12th floor, I scared you." "Yes, Ma," Kiki admitted. "I thought I was going to lose my job, or worse." Patricia nodded slowly. "You were right to be afraid." Kiki frowned. "What do you mean?" Patricia's face grew serious. "I wasn't just weak that day," she said. "I was very sick." Kiki's eyes widened. "The doctors later told me that if I hadn't eaten when I did, the collapse could have damaged my heart." Kiki's breath caught. "Oh my God." "You didn't know that," Patricia continued. "You just acted." The elevator dinged softly. They reached the top floor. Patricia stepped out into a space Kiki had never entered before. The executive floor, glass walls, quiet carpets, wide windows showing the Lagos Lagoon stretching endlessly. It felt unreal. Patricia gestured for Kiki to sit in one of the leather chairs inside her office. Kiki sat carefully, afraid of spoiling something. Patricia sat opposite her. "Kiki," she said, folding her hands, "I didn't plan to reveal myself that day." Kiki listened, wide-eyed. "I had returned to Nigeria to decide whether to sell my shares completely." Patricia continued, "This company, it used to belong to my late husband." Kiki nodded slowly. "He built it with a belief that people mattered more than profit," Patricia said. "But over time, that belief was buried." Her voice softened. "So I came back quietly, as a cleaner. to see what was left. Kiki felt chills. "And what did you see?" Kiki asked quietly. Patricia smiled sadly. "I saw efficiency. I saw results. But I didn't see kindness." She paused. "Until I met you." Kiki's eyes burned. "I didn't do anything special," she said. Patricia shook her head. "That's the thing," she said. "You did." Patricia stood up and walked to the window. "I will train you," she said. "You will learn. You will make mistakes. People will doubt you." Kiki nodded. "I'm already scared," she admitted. Patricia smiled. "Good," she said. "It means you understand the weight of opportunity." She turned back. "But understand this. Some people will not forgive you for this promotion." Kiki's stomach tightened. "Why?" "Because," Patricia said calmly, "you didn't climb the ladder the way they did." The words hung in the air. Patricia pressed a button on her desk. A secretary appeared. "Prepare an announcement," Patricia said. "Kiki Adebayo will start immediately. Arrange clearance, wardrobe allowance, and travel documents." Travel documents? Kiki's head spun. Travel? Before she could ask, Patricia looked at her again. "We're flying to London in 3 days," she said. "Board meeting." Kiki's mouth fell open. I've never left Nigeria." Patricia smiled. "Everyone starts somewhere." As Kiki walked out of that office later, her old ID card still hanging on her neck, she felt like she was floating. But as the elevator doors closed, she caught a glimpse of something in the reflection. Mrs. Banjo standing down the hallway, watching her, not smiling, and Kiki understood something clearly for the first time. This wasn't the end of her struggle, it was the beginning of a new one, a bigger one, with higher stakes and far more dangerous enemies. Kiki didn't sleep that night. She lay on her thin mattress in Ajagunle, staring at the ceiling fan as it turned slowly, squeaking on every round like it was tired too. London, executive floor, personal assistant to the CEO. The words didn't fit her life. Not yet. Maybe never. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw faces from the lobby. The shock, the anger, the way some smiles never reached the eyes. Her phone buzzed around 11:47 p.m. A message from an unknown number. Unknown, congratulations. Kiki frowned. Another message came almost immediately. Unknown. Just remember, people fall faster than they rise. Her chest tightened. She typed back, then erased the words, typed again, deleted. In the end, she locked the phone and placed it face down. Her aunt shifted on the mattress beside her. "Kiki?" her aunt murmured sleepily. "You're still awake?" "Yes, Auntie." "Is everything okay?" Kiki hesitated, then she said softly, "My life might be changing." Her aunt turned. Toward her. "Changing how?" Kiki swallowed. "I might start working directly for the CEO." Silence, then her aunt sat up fully. "The CEO?" she repeated. Kiki nodded. Her aunt studied her face carefully, then sighed. "My daughter," she said gently, "be careful." Kiki nodded again. She already knew. The next morning, Kiki arrived at work early, earlier than usual. She wore the same clothes, same shoes, same scratched ID card. But everything felt different. Security greeted her differently. Not warmer, not colder, just alert. At the reception desk, a junior staff whispered to another, and both looked at Kiki. Kiki kept her eyes forward. She walked to the ground floor messenger corner to drop her bag. That was when she saw it. Her desk was empty, her chair gone, her name removed from the duty board. A supervisor approached, clipboard in hand. "You don't sit here anymore," the woman said flatly. Kiki's heart jumped. "Oh, where should I?" "Executive floor," the woman replied, already walking away. No explanation, no congratulations, just dismissal. Kiki stood there for a second, unsure whether to feel proud or scared. She pressed the elevator button. This time, nobody told her to step aside. The executive elevator opened. She stepped in alone. The doors closed softly. As the elevator climbed, Kiki's hands shook. She tried to steady them. "You belong here," she whispered to herself. But another voice inside her replied, "Do you?" The executive floor was quieter than she remembered. Too quiet, carpet thick enough to swallow footsteps, glass walls hiding private conversations, air that smelled like money and restraint. Patricia's secretary, Ms. Ijoma, met her at the door, tall, polished, calm. "You're Kiki," she said, not smiling. "Yes, ma." "Follow me." Ms. Ijoma handed her a thin folder. "Your temporary schedule, meetings, protocols, confidentiality rules." Kiki nodded, her head spinning. "First lesson," Ms. Ijoma continued as they walked. "You don't speak unless spoken to. You don't assume. And you never repeat what you hear in these halls." "Yes, ma." Ms. Ijoma stopped walking suddenly and turned. "Also," she added quietly, "not everyone here believes you deserve this position." Kiki swallowed. "I understand." Ms. Ijoma studied her for a second. Then she nodded once and continued walking. Inside Patricia's office, the CEO was already seated, reading a document. She looked up when Kiki entered. "You came early," Patricia said. "Yes, ma." "Good." Patricia gestured for her to sit. "I want to be clear," Patricia said calmly. "This is not charity." Kiki nodded quickly. "I know, ma." "You will work harder than anyone," Patricia continued. "You will be watched. You will be tested. Some will try to make you fail." Kiki met her eyes. "I won't disappoint you." Patricia smiled, slightly. "I believe you." Then she slid a slim envelope across the desk. Kiki stared at it. "What is this?" "Your travel documents," Patricia said. "Visa appointment confirmation. We leave in 3 days." Kiki's breath caught. So it was real. Patricia leaned back. "There's something else," she said. "I didn't tell you everything about my time here as a cleaner." Kiki sat straighter. "I wasn't only watching kindness," Patricia continued. "I was documenting cruelty." Kiki's stomach tightened. "What kind of cruelty?" Patricia's eyes hardened. "Verbal abuse, wage manipulation, threats." Kiki's mind raced. She thought of raised voices in hallways, cleaners being ignored, messengers shouted at. "Some people," Patricia said, "will lose their jobs." Kiki felt cold. "And some," Patricia added quietly, "already suspect that you are the reason." Kiki's chest tightened. "That's not true." "I know," Patricia said, "but truth rarely protects the innocent." There was a knock on the door. Ms. Ijoma entered. "Ma, the branch heads are requesting an urgent meeting." Patricia nodded. "Kiki, come with me." Kiki stood quickly. As they walked toward the boardroom, voices leaked through the glass walls, angry voices, frustrated voices. "Unacceptable, no process. She's inexperienced." Patricia pushed the door open. The room went quiet instantly. Every head turned toward Kiki. She felt the weight of their stares press against her skin. Patricia took her seat at the head of the table. "Kiki will be taking notes," she said calmly. A man laughed under his breath. Another woman rolled her eyes openly. Patricia's gaze snapped to them. "If you have a problem," Patricia said evenly, "say it now." Silence. Thick, heavy, dangerous. The meeting began. Words flew across the table. Profit margins, audits, restructuring. Kiki wrote as fast as she could, her pen struggling to keep up. Halfway through the meeting, a man across the table leaned toward her. "Careful," he whispered, his tone smooth. "You're sitting on a seat people kill for." Kiki froze for half a second. Then she kept writing. After the meeting, as the executives filed out, one woman brushed past Kiki and murmured, "Enjoy it while it lasts." Kiki's hands trembled again. She walked back to Patricia's office, trying to breathe normally. Patricia noticed immediately. "You're shaking." "I'm fine," Kiki lied. Patricia studied her. "This is the price," she said quietly. "Power exposes everything." Kiki nodded. Later that afternoon, Kiki returned briefly to the ground floor to collect her old bag. As she bent to pick it up, a cleaner approached her. It was a woman she recognized. "Thank you," the cleaner whispered quickly. "For what?" "For seeing us," the woman said, "even when you didn't have to." Kiki's throat tightened. Before she could reply, the cleaner walked away quickly. Kiki straightened, and that's when she felt it. The sense of being watched. She turned slowly. Across the lobby, near the glass doors, Mrs. Banjo stood with two men Kiki didn't recognize. They weren't smiling. One of them glanced at Kiki, then leaned close to Mrs. Banjo's ear. Mrs. Banjo nodded once, slowly, deliberately. Kiki's phone buzzed in her hand. Another message from an unknown number. Unknown. London won't save you. Her breath caught. She looked up again. Mrs. Banjo was still watching. And this time, she smiled. Not a happy smile. A patient one. Kiki realized something then, deep in her chest. Her kindness had opened a door. But behind that door was a fight she never asked for, and as she walked back toward the executive elevator, her phone buzzed again. One last message. Unknown. Choose your side wisely. Kiki stepped into the elevator. The doors closed, and for the first time since Patricia stretched out her hand in the lobby, Kiki felt truly afraid. The flight to London felt unreal to Kiki, not because of the plane, not because of the hotel, but because of where she had come from. Just a few weeks ago, she was counting coins for transport. Now she sat beside Patricia Adeyemi, taking notes in rooms where decisions affected thousands of lives. But the danger followed her. On the second day of meetings, Patricia collapsed during a private session. Not dramatic, just sudden. One moment she was speaking, the next she was slumping. Kiki, Patricia whispered weakly, the folder. Red one? Kiki grabbed it fast and called for help. At the hospital, doctors confirmed something disturbing. Patricia had been slowly poisoned during her time as a cleaner. Small doses. Meant to weaken her. Meant to push her out quietly. The evidence was in the red folder. Names, dates, signatures. Back in Lagos, the truth exploded. Senior managers were arrested. Mrs. Banjo was suspended. Security footage played in boardrooms and courtrooms. The anonymous messages stopped, and the company stood still, shocked by what had been hiding under suits and titles. At the emergency board meeting, Patricia stood, frail but firm. I survived, she said calmly, because someone fed me when she didn't have to. She turned to Kiki. This company will not reward cruelty again. Then she announced sweeping changes, fair wages, anonymous reporting lines, a welfare fund for junior staff, and finally, Kiki Adebayo remains my personal assistant. This time, nobody argued. Weeks later, Kiki visited Ajagunle, not as a messenger, not as a girl afraid to look people in the eye. She brought groceries home, paid her aunt's rent, fixed the leaking roof. But she didn't forget the bench on the 12th floor. She didn't forget hunger. One afternoon, Patricia asked her quietly, if you could go back, would you still give me that food? Kiki smiled. Yes, she said, even if nothing changed. Patricia nodded. That, she said, is why you're here. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.